Just put us on.
We're on.
Put the screen up.
We are on.
Hey guys, we get started in a few minutes. I think it's only 4:57, so we've got another 3 or 4 minutes before we're really going to get rolling here. But wanted to make sure we were running and operational for all of our worksaholics from across the country. Got the boss on today.
Yep.
We'll see how this goes. I got to be on my best behavior.
Behave today.
So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, let's give it another couple minutes.
Yeah.
And today we're going to be talking about farming for about a half hour with you. I think you'll have some great takeaways, some things that you can apply right away. And we're going to feed you a bunch of COVID quarantine action items that you can do before they release us back into the wild, right? So we'll see how this goes.
You want to put the slide?
Sure. Hey, I mean, we could chat like this for a few minutes.
Sure. Let me make sure we're good on this.
She's making sure we're live on YouTube before we get rolling into the meat of the matter. It's 4:50.
Yeah. Live is always fun, right?
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're great. One more minute. Oh, thank you, dear.
Just about to pop over to 5 o'clock on the button. That's when I'll start. Could you leave that over this side?
Oh, this?
Or for both?
Yeah, sure.
Actually, right there's good.
We're going to hit the mic. We don't do this together.
Never.
Not once.
Never
This is
before.
The first time.
She usually won't let me on screen or on microphone when she's on microphone and vice versa. So let's see how this goes. It looks like it's just turned 5 o'clock p.m. on the Eastern Seaboard with our worksaholics from across the country. Some of you are in Denver. Some of you are in California. Some of you are in the Pacific Northwest. I just met some great friends up in Oregon and Washington State. And we're all coming together once a week on Wednesdays at 5 just to kind of talk and get to know each other better and maybe discover some things together. I mean, the original intention of this thing, if I'm being honest, was just to get everybody in the boat rowing together. I mean, I was scared to death on April 1st when we first started the Quarantine Realtor. And I wasn't afraid of the Quarantine Realtor. I was afraid of the economy. I was afraid, and I'm still afraid.
Well, we've done this before, so we were definitely ready to be.
We had suffered, as many of our veteran realtor and mortgage partners have had the experience back in 8, 9, and 10 of suffering through what for all of us was the greatest recession that we'd ever seen and the greatest twist of a compelling real estate market that went south really, really fast. So we walked into April 1st of 2020 hoping to share ideas with you that you could apply right away. And if we're right, we'll find out over the next few months if we were correct in our assumptions that if you got into the boat and we started to row together and we started to do some of the work together, that maybe we'd have a better summer than we would if we weren't exposed to some of those things. So let's go ahead and put the slideshow up and we'll dig right into some of the issues that we've been working on so far. There you go. So you should be able to see my screen now. So the Quarantine Realtor broadcast every Wednesday. I'm going to need that. I'm going to move it on quick.
Okay.
No, we already messed it up. All right, I'm going to need to move the slides along. Okay, all right.
Look at us.
How can I move the slides along? There we go. So we decided we were going to focus on 4 channels. How does that work?
Push that little button right there.
I did it. Okay. We're going to focus on 4 channels. We started out on absentee owners back 4 weeks ago, and we shared with you some proven processes, proven systems to get you up and operational in the absentee owner sector. A lot of agents were confused and really didn't know how to define an absentee owner, didn't know where to find them, didn't know how to get the addresses, but we gave you as much information as we could to set you on your way. And I was so fortunate, so happy, and so lucky to get really nice thank you notes and texts and emails from agents from across the country that actually took seller inquiries just a few days after they sent out their absentee owners. And my wish for you, if I have a really, really strong wish, it's that you do it 20 notes a week, every week for 50 weeks, because you're never going to know what 6 or 8 or 10 new listings feel like in your inventory from absentee owners until you do it consistently for 30 or 40 weeks in a row. It doesn't really pay dividends if you do it 1 time or 2 times. It pays dividends when you do it 30 or 40 times, right?
Well, we have a lot of people who have reported back that they have current active listings based on just those notes. So that was super exciting for us.
And Carrie knows we used to have my daughter, who's now 21, we used to have her write the notes, right? We used to pay her $20 or $40 a week just to put out notes for us. So this is second nature to us. The next thing we did is we started talking about database mining with you, especially this new phenomenon of analyzing or predicting based on their online behavior, what they're going to be doing. Really weird stuff. I mean, database mining is not new, but using programs like the Secret Weapon to take your database, break it down into the top 20 people in your database that are actively shopping for real estate or actively shopping for mortgages or actively shopping for new construction homes all over. That became a big deal for us. So the takeaway on database mining, if you recall, is simply the idea that you don't have to farm all 1,000 of the people in your database. You can really score your database down to the top 20% of them and let those people be the focus of your.
The first day I saw it, I think you mentioned that we are shopping for a home currently. So I put us in, and I scored really high, really fast. And I knew that minute that it worked.
Yeah. When she scored above 90 and I was in 82, because we're both online shopping for houses right now, we knew that the system was kind of foolproof for us. So that's called the secretweapon.info. The channel that we talked about last week, and I hope you recall, and I hope you tried this, because you don't get 34 years in the real estate business and selling well over 150 homes a year without trying some cool stuff. And when you go back and you pull up your seasoned leads, the takeaway for that was just simply how sneaky simple texts are in 2020. And I want to touch on this because it was really awesome. Tell them how you loaded yourself in as a customer behind everyone's back, and we didn't know that she was listed as one of our customers.
So I went in and I labeled myself as one of the customers in the back end of the CRM. So it wasn't like a lead popped over that everybody could see, oh, Carrie's in. It just kind of went on, and one random afternoon at like 1:30 in the afternoon, I get a text from a stupid unknown number that said, are you still looking to buy a house this summer? And I was like, oh, I am still looking to buy. I was like, oh, that's us. So it really even caught me off guard and made me think, who is this person that really, wants to help me do this?
The sneaky simple thing about it is that the blue ink that's around the iPhone text, or
Yes.
the gray that's around the, what is it, Samsung text, I guess.
Green.
Okay, green. If it doesn't define who it is, it doesn't tell you who the contact is that's sending it to you. And it just simply asks, are you still looking to buy a home this summer? Think about how she jumped out of her chair and said, yeah, I am looking to buy a house this summer. Imagine if that happened 1,100 times that afternoon for you. Would 20 or 30 or 40 of those people call you back? And I'm just going to go on record right now, bet you a steak dinner in your own hometown that if you send that out to 1,000 people, you'll be overwhelmed. You'll be overrun.
Let's be clear. It caught me off guard, and I programmed it to do it.
So my hope for you is that you'll learn that you only have to do about 100 texts to your database each day to get back 6 or 8 or 9 positive, meaningful dialogue going on with those clients. You don't have to do anything special. The other thing I want to remind you, my email address is on there. russ@AnnieMacWorks.com. We run a division, an organization for AnnieMac that is known as the Realtor Referral Network. It's called Homeowner Assist. And we have an opportunity, we extended the opportunity for you, like the Statue of Liberty quote at the bottom, send me your dead, your tired, your old leads. If you've got leads in your system, if you've got leads in your CRM, if you've got data that you consider to be bad leads, if I got a dime for every time a realtor told me he had bad leads, I would be a rich, rich man. But honestly, if you've got dead, tired, old leads, send them to us. We'll convert them through our CRM and send them back to you for 15%. There's a formal agreement that we had put together. A half a dozen agents reached out to us last week. We've already started on it. And I think we did about 20 live transfers since last week's presentation, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a handful, at least, of consumers that raised their hand because of our tenacity and our frequency of texts and calls to get them to finally bite. And when we bite them, I'll just say it, we'll hook them, you clean them and fry them. We'll do that all day long. And I'm interested to do that with all of you. I will say this, one of the lessons, and this really brings in the farming stuff that we are going to be talking about for the rest of this time together. Top agents specialize, average agents generalize, and without being a jerk, low producers just don't do anything, right? So I say top agents specialize, average agents generalize, low producers just don't do anything. So there you go, being that likable guy. Yeah, when you I want to go back to this, and this is one of the things that I'm most proud of in my entire career. I was early 20s kid, still had little pimples all over my cheeks, and I was driving a little cheap Jeep, and I was really eager. I was really, really ambitious. So I would sit with my broker all the time and bug him. And I'd be like, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? And he would give me best practices from some of the other agents. And on my own, I said, well, shoot, the best way I can learn what to do is by spending time with smarter people than myself. That's why he married me. we were able to start to say to my entire real estate, I was about 170 realtors in the office. I would put this up on my door every month. It said, I will be the top listing agent this month, or I will take the top listing agent out to lunch. Anywhere you want to go, any restaurant. If you're an emerging associate in a small town or in a large brokerage, put that up on your door, make that post on your social media, and follow through with it, because the joy of it wasn't being the top listing agent. The joy of it was at the bottom of your screen right there. Karen Powell was the top listing agent 4 months that year. Bobby Meckler was the top listing agent 2 months that year. And Paul Bergman was the top agent once that year. So yes, I was the top agent many, many months because I was a hardworking son of a gun. But the lunches that I got with Karen Powell, Bobby Meckler, and Paul Bergman gave me more insight into the fact, I mean, guys, success leaves clues is not just a cliche. You can see the trail behind the most successful people. And this leads to this conversation specifically. I'm sitting at lunch with Karen Powell after I got my butt whooped by her being the top listing agent and me being like second or third. And she said, she didn't have a list, but she had like a Drew Barrymore thing. I love Karen. She knows I love her. I dated her daughter for a while. She had one of these things. She'd go, hey, Russ, what area do you specialize in? That's what Karen said to me at lunch. I said, I don't know. She goes, you don't have a subdivision that you farm, or you don't farm any subdivision? I'd say, no, I don't. And she's like, that's crazy. And then I'm out with Bobby and she's like, well, what's your what area do you specialize in? And I thought, I don't know. I'm a 22, 24-year-old kid cold calling for sale by owners and expireds to make a living. And these top earners would say, well, Russ, all you need to do is send one postcard a month to the same subdivision over and over and over, and you'll be fine. And I was like, wow, that's an epiphany from the top realtors in my office. And then Bobby Meckler, I remember it very clearly, beautiful lady, still works residential real estate in Parkland, Florida. Bobby Meckler, big shout out to Bobby. She says, I send 2 postcards a month. Karen sends 1 postcard a month. Paul Bergman sends 1 postcard a month, but I send two a month. And I was like, okay, that's what I'll do. I'll just copy that success, right? So look at these cheesy postcards that we started sending out to farm areas back in the day. This is what, 92, 95, BK. 97. We'll call this BK, before Carrie, right? And she loves to point this out, the top right-hand corner of your screen there. What's it say?
It says Kerry, Kerri, which is not how you spell my name.
Even worse than
So
that. Look at the other.
Look at the special. So I am the spelling specialist here.
Yeah, I'm a seller, not a speller. We were doing this back in 92, 94, 96. And those were the cheesiest postcards you could ever find, weren't they? Awful. Black and white on a Microsoft publisher, probably printed on my own printer at my house because I was such a cheap son of a gun. But you know what? I was making $350,000 a year as a 25-year-old kid. You know, not quite that much. Honestly, we broke $300,000 in commissions by the time I was 25, but it was my a little team and I. But these were not hard lessons to learn, right? The top agents in my office would tell me to mail out once a month, and the top earner would tell me to mail out twice a month. But then look what happened. 20 years ago, this lady walks into my life, and I'm just going to say that with absolute respect and love. I never had a year that I made over $500,000 a year before I met Kerri. I never had 1 year that I made over $1 million a year before I met Kerri. And it was almost like ham and legs. No, it was brains.
Well, they were big legs back then.
It was brains and beauty. No, it was truly the right side of the brain versus the left side of the brain. Everything that Kerri is going to talk to you about tonight is more operational, administrative in nature, and very, very systems and protocol oriented. Everything that I always talk about is sales and creativity and marketing. And I was pretty fundamentally sound in creativity and marketing.
Oh, absolutely.
But we didn't have a whole lot in the way of operations and protocol until you came along. So that picture's exactly, well, right about 20 years old.
20
right?
years, yeah.
And what did your son say to you today when he saw that picture?
We were prepping for this, and he had told me the other night that I should let these little puppies go all the
dark
way
brown
down
roots.
because I haven't been able to get my hair done. And he said, I don't know you. He turns 18 in May. And he said, I've never seen you with not having blonde hair. So let's give it a shot. And then he saw that picture and he was like, yeah, no, you stay just the way you are.
And I've been saying to her all month this month, your hair, you have such pretty blonde hair. Why do you dye your roots black? I don't understand. Why is that a process to make your hair look like that? So now we get into something that I've really been annoyed by lately. I can't express it more clearly than that. Like, rules are made to be bent and broken and tooled with, right? In my mind, rules are an impediment to progress. In her mind, rules are the
They're
way
necessary
to make progress.
Absolutely.
Right.
You have to follow them. But however, every rule has a caveat. So,
but the general intention of the rule was don't go into a farm area where somebody else is already kicking your butt.
True.
You know, the idea was, why would you go into a geographic farm area where someone else is already doing the lion's share of the business in there?
Somebody has already built the foundation. Someone has already made themselves the household name. Somebody, when they go out to dinner in that area of geographic farming, people recognize them from their billboards, their postcards, their bus benches, all of those things. Someone's already done that. And if they're capturing more than 25%, you're basically fighting an uphill battle. So why would you knowingly go in and do that?
The ego says I can beat them, for the egomaniacs out there. In
I've
fact,
actually heard that.
My buddy Chris
times.
last week said, wow, that's a silly rule. I'll go in and go head to head.
Well, I
with
wasn't
them.
going to call him out by name.
Yeah, I did. But anyway, that rule was put in place just to give you a guide not to go head to head with somebody who's already capturing 25% of the listing side of the market. That's a big agent in a particular farm area. So you'll see a lot, and it'll probably one out of 100 farm areas will have that. Not too many farm areas already have somebody that's cranking 25%. Another rule that cracked me up is like, they'd be calculating out what their listing side commission would be, and they'd be so ornery about like the detail of it. And I'd be like,
well, it's just a general, this one is just a general rule. So maybe I should have said guidelines or something else instead of rules. But you know, the 10% capture of the listing side commission is going to give you what you can spend in that farm, because we don't want you spending 50% of what you're going to make to do that. And that goes back to the 25%, because if you're going back to a place where you're going head to head with another agent who's already ingrained in that neighborhood, it's going to cost you more to break into it. So really rule number 2 goes with rule number 1 and it serves it.
But just to tie a bow on this a little bit, I mean, Chip and I were making $300,000 a year with black and white postcards with no rules. She came along and got an increase in capture rate by setting in some protocols, some systems and some rules. We passed that on to other people. I happen to believe that some of the more administrative minded people get really caught up in the minutia of the rules. Like, how do I calculate exactly the 10% and how do I calculate it 25%? It's just a general sense.
Well, I do have a system for that.
Okay, so we get into that in Farming Fridays, but never spend more than 10% on your projected gross revenue. They're befuddled, like, well, how do I project? So what you're going to do is you're going to project 10% of the listings
right
that you're going to earn. And then what money would have come out of that? And don't spend more than that. And what's your favorite quote in residential real estate?
My favorite quote in everything is spend a dime and make a dollar.
Spend a dime, make a dollar. So she's trying to say, if you're going to go into a farm area and you got to spend $11,000 for the year, don't go into that farm area and spend $11,000 on that geographic farm area unless the capture rate of 10% of the listings equals 110,000 in commissions.
Exactly.
That's
Precisely.
the general rule. And don't go into a farm area and spend $11,000 on a farm area if somebody else is already in that farm area doing 25% of the listings, because you're going to get your butt kicked whether you think so or not.
That's a fact.
All right. Now here's this was us. We were all over the place before we met Carrie, and then she created these little binders. You want to touch on why these binders were important to you?
So these binders were super important because well, let me just digress for just a second. I am a former school teacher. So it's what I do.
Babysit.
I babysit
tough
people.
Kids. Go ahead.
And so in order for me to keep track of everything that was going on and also to harness a salesperson, right? So a salesperson is just kind of everywhere. You have to put it in. So even the people, but once I gave you the binders and once I made you do it, you were so diligent about putting everything in. And what your binder really does when you focus in on it and you create it, you see, you're going to go into your perspective. What's that word that I'm trying to say?
Potential
farm area. And you're going to do the math that brings you there. And you're going to know all of the things about the people who you're basically a spy.
Who
you're
are
going
the people
to
in our neighborhood?
Exactly.
Remember that Sesame Street song?
You're basically a spy. So you want to know, who was a for sale by owner and didn't sell, who put their house on the market and didn't sell, expired. You want to know who the absentee owners are.
But agents want all these rules broken down. They're like, we get questions every time you do a Farming Fridays. They say, well, should I do these and these and these, or should I just do these? And I know they want specifics, but really it's the spirit of it is, if somebody tried to sell last year and didn't successfully sell, go after them.
They already raised their hand and said that they don't really want to live in that house anymore. They want to or need to sell their home. So
building your binder is about segmenting your subdivision into groups of people that have specific characteristics, like for sale by owners, expired, seasoned expireds, maybe even somebody who has owned the house for more than 15 years or 20 years. So you start to see that there's like groups of people, right?
So as an example, you want to know, this one is the toughest one for people to wrap their head around. What are the number of families who are renting? Well, they're like, well, how do I know if somebody's renting? Well, you go to the absentee owners and you see, that probably was really loud, sorry. You go to the absentee owners and you see who it is that has homes that they're not living in because they live in another state, right? And then if that home is being occupied, then someone's living there and they're most probably a renter. And I'm not saying go knock on the door. I'm saying if this is your farm area, not all of your work can be done at your computer. You need to drive those streets. You need to know what's going on inside of that geographic farm. I just used an example for you the other day. We were walking through a neighborhood on a walk because we're in quarantine and what else are we going to do? And somebody had 3 different swatches of paint on the side of their home. And I turned to you and said, what?
if she said if she was farming that subdivision, she would vote on which color it is and congratulate that family for having taken the initiative to modernize and upgrade their home and have a little Remax
I would've
card or
said-
Weichert card. Or
I would have said, I picked number 2. And that they would have been like, oh my goodness.
with a little smiley face.
Yes.
But the point of segmenting your subdivision in the binder is if you know who's been living there a long time and who's been living there a short time, and some people who just bought their home, maybe it gives you a sense of expertise that when you're showing a buyer a house in there, you're talking about things like that. Did you know that more than 200 people in here have been in here longer than 15 years?
Exactly.
Did
What about
you-
the other day when we were in the neighborhood over there? We were looking at a home and the realtor
Knew every
listing
neighbor.
agent.
She knew every house. She knew which ones that had been upgraded. And both of us have been in real estate for 30. I've been 35. You've been 22 or 25 years. We were so impressed with that level of specialization that agent knew everything. You need to aspire to that. And the last thing I'm going to say about these silly binders, because you guys are giving me a bunch of business in questions all the time about them. How about this? How about just aspire to have a binder? How about just aspire to be an expert? Maybe it takes you more than a week to do
or
it.
have one.
Maybe it takes you 6 months to get it all the way done, but
It's not immediate. So you're not going to do it in 1 week. It's not it's a building process. It's your new favorite book. That's what your binder is, that you're continually adding to. And when you're having phone conversations or you're having any kind of interaction, you're going to make notes next to that person so that you know that they have a dog named Joe and a kid named Sally, and you know all of these things about them, and you're able to then refresh your memory, and it makes it way more personable when you're interacting with them in any way.
and the key for me is one of my favorite definition of the word success was always success is a progressive realization towards a worthy ideal. So, if the worthy ideal is that you are an area expert, just at the top of his game, her game, know everything about the community. Well, maybe you don't have to know every terminated, canceled, and withdrawed on the first Wednesday that you start, but it's something that you're progressing towards understanding which families have tried to sell before, which families have tried by owner, which families own a home, but their kids live in it. Oh, I thought it was a renter, but I was wrong. It's actually their children. And I'm learning things about the community over time. You don't have to know everything day one dollar.
And I know that binders seem a little bit old fashioned. I do know that, but
Okay, so use Google Sheets.
You can use Google Sheets, but sometimes it's just nice to be able to write it down and have it to be able to refer to. So,
Especially if you're
sorry.
old. Anyway, but here's where the old school techniques really came in to make a difference for our companies. When she began to treat our geographic farm areas like a little pocket of a small town.
Well, there was a reason too that I did that. Remember, so when I first came to work with Russ and Chip taught me so much, but when I first came to work with them, your farm area was huge.
Yeah,
You had a
we had about
humongous-
2,500 homes in our farm area when she started with us.
So then what happened is that when we were doing what I was going to be farming for myself, what we started to do is I started to choose smaller farm areas. They were little pockets that nobody else really paid any attention to. They were Glen Walk,
Summer
and
Wind,
Verona,
Glen
and
Walk,
those.
Ramblewood Square.
They had like between 100 and 143 homes.
Some of them even only had 60. And you
Yeah.
would take your daughter and go deliver door hangers, or you'd take your son and go deliver door hangers. We
Yeah.
had Luminatia celebrations during the holiday season. She would get ahead of the sports local teams. I'm not talking about the professional teams. I'm talking about the local Little League team schedules, the school calendars. One of the most impressive things that I ever saw was Halloween in an 80 home farm area. She farmed a little 80 home farm, and there was about 10 of the families hosted open bar cocktail hours during.
There was adult trick-or-treating as well. That's
Yeah,
right.
and it
And it
just
was
made
really
everything
cool
feel
because-
warm.
Because, sorry to interrupt you, but it was really neat because how we set it up was it was at the end of the cul-de-sac. So basically we would block it off, and then the people would come to it and we'd say, oh, don't go to these houses back here because they're all here. So it became a little like Halloween party right there in the middle of the street. Everybody brought their own candy that they were going to pass out to those children. And it was just a time for me as a real estate professional to be able to get to know the kids' names, take pictures for my newsletter that I
And in
was
social
doing,
media now.
and now social media. Remember, we did all this before there was social media.
Don't keep saying that. They'll say
Sorry.
we don't know what we're talking about. We're doing it right now though, too, just to prove it to you. We're farming a couple subdivisions now. And just to be fair, I manage a dozen or more intimate mentorship relationships that are farming every day, and we get to do that. But the Great Neighborhood Garage Sale, and I would just say this, if I could tell you how much empathy I have for the class of 2020, recognize them. If you're a realtor and you have a social media following, and you could recognize the seniors that are coming out of college and or high school right now in some way, shape, or form, picture one of those parades going through the neighborhood with all their names, picture some kind of a not even a ceremony, but just some way to congratulate them. It's heartbreaking.
I would do, if I was still farming a farm area right this minute, I would have banners created for the high schools that were affected in that area, right? So, Stoneman, Coral Springs High, all those ones that we would know that there are children who are going to school there. And if you have a farm area that you're intimate with, and where the majority of those children go to school.
If you know which school serves it, you could find out which seniors are graduating, which ones live in your subdivision. You want to honor them somehow or another. It would mean
We
a lot.
happen to have two that are not going to have graduation this year.
This year, empty nesters. So remember when I told you that Karen Powell told me, Russ, you got to specialize in something. And then she also told me, you got to send them a postcard once a month, Russ, once a month, every month. But then Bobby said twice a month. Well, my worthy ideal became, I got to find a way to touch the candidates in my farm area 2 times a month, every month. And we went through this one time before, but I want you to touch on the different levels so that people on a budget can get it done.
Well, there are 3 different levels of ways that you can keep in touch with your people. I mean, if you think about it, okay, so I say that a garage sale is no cost, and you say, but I have to print things and I have to do that. And I want you to think about a garage sale and what a Great Neighborhood Garage Sale can do. If you are the person who's sponsoring that, and I'm not going to go long like this on every single one, but that one just kind of caught my eye. You are going to print maps of the people who are participating in it, and it's going to have your information on the back of it.
For those of you who don't know, a Great Neighborhood Garage Sale is you as a realtor arranging 10 plus garage sales on the same day in the same neighborhood, so that you're benefiting from the economies of scale of hosting multiple garage sales. And a little lesson, I learned that people have garage sales just before they want to sell a lot of times because they're trying to get their house ready to sell. So don't ever shy away from the Great Neighborhood Garage Sale. It's a fantastic opportunity for you to build a relationship in your farm.
And then as another example, emailing is a low cost thing. And I know that you say it's free, but if you're going to be emailing to a large number of people, it's going to be maybe a little bit of a cost if you're going to try to automate it and do the things that I would.
Well, you can do a MailChimp account for next to nothing now, as long as you go out and compile those. But door hangers were key. But I do want to stress, never do door hangers in gated communities, deed restricted communities, or high-end communities. They're offensive to those homeowners. Door hangers hanging on the doorknob when you get home from work. If you're in a lesser, maybe what do you call it?
A lesser expensive neighborhood, perhaps.
Yeah, more glossy 4-color postcards in the higher end neighborhoods, but these are just inexpensive ways.
These are just different examples, and you want to pick 2 each month in order for you to do, but you don't want to pick 2 at the beginning of the month. You want to pick 2.
5th and 25th or 5th and 18th, right? Sorry.
You want to pick 2 at the beginning of the year so that you know all 24 touches that you're going to do. And the reason you're going to do that is because you want to spend a dime and make $1. So if you do it haphazardly and you just decide, oh, this, it's not only is it going to be inefficient, but it would be expensive. It could be expensive because you would then maybe spend more money. So one of the other things that I really enjoy for a geographic farm area that you are in charge of, or that you own, is individual subdivision websites. Now, we have a way that you can have an individual subdivision website free from any charge. you can simply go into your MyWorkSuite account. If you don't have one, you can go sign up at www.myworksuite.com.
It's a free account.
It's totally free, no charge at all. And you could go and create a subdivision website just like I did here as a sample.
Can I just say this? She changed my mind about farming. The product became the farm subdivision name. So everything became relevant to Shadowwood, Oakwood, Maplewood. The farm area became the product. So building a single website just for the farm area itself never even occurred to me in the first 15 years or so that I was selling real estate. So she would make the subdivision feel like a product unto itself.
Well, it is. It's a neighborhood that people go to raise their families in, right? So that happened to be the place where, you know, I lived and raised my family for 16 years. But the point of the matter is that you can do it for little money, or we have given you the ability to do it for no money. And basically what I did to do that is I manually created a single property website inside of MyWorkSuite instead of having it linked to the MLS like a normal listing would be. And I downloaded different sample pictures from different listings that had been active in that neighborhood. I actually sold that house right there. Staged and sold that house right there. But so it's very, very easy, simple, and it allows you to have it so that the people who live in that neighborhood become proud of the things that you're doing for them. It gives it a virtual tour, the neighborhood itself. It allows you to describe what it is, and it also links to you so that if anybody knows or those people in that neighborhood are sharing it, your name, your picture, your phone number are all over it.
You know what else cracks me up? They call it free. It's not free. Annie Mac pays for that. Annie Mac Home Mortgage pays the bill for this to be operational nationwide. So you have the opportunity to take advantage of the technology that they built. And we talked about sellers and rule followers and administrative people.
And little cheat real quick while that's on the screen. You see there, I'm scrolling there in my sample, which I just lost it, but I'm scrolling there in my sample, all of the schools that are a possibility for the children of that neighborhood to go to.
So whether you use Wix or you use some other website design software to build your website, or you use our free technology on MyWorkSuite, building a website that's specific to the farm area that makes the farm area the product is the point of this, right?
And yes. And those of you, though, I want to just say, those of you who know MyWorkSuite know that this took me possibly 20 minutes to build.
Yeah. I mean, it might have taken me 7 hours, but it took her 20 minutes. So you get the idea. Now, this is where things get a little nasty. I think if you're a realtor in 2020 and you don't know how to build landing pages, you're kind of like a boxer in the ring with one arm tied behind your back. I mean, landing pages are the way that you capture leads from every source in 2020.
They certainly are. And you also, so not only are they that, but they're also a way for you to get to know the people who live in that farm area. So let me just give you an example. Let's use the Great Neighborhood Garage Sale as that example. So I put out on my social media neighborhood specific group that I would like to host as a real estate professional.
Wait, you have a private group for your subdivision?
Absolutely.
So all the homeowners join your private group and then they interact together about other things?
They do. Oh, so I put that out there and I build a landing page that says who would like to participate in this. And I put the link in my Facebook group. I put it on my Instagram
It's
group.
A landing page. It's called a squeeze page. It just grabs those 4 or 5 pieces of information from the customer.
So I put that out there. They click on it because they want to participate. You know why? Because they're going to move in 3 months, but they want to participate in that garage sale. They have to fill in their name, their address, and their email address and their phone number. So I'm gathering information about all of the members of that farm area. Another example.
I was going to touch on the garage sale real quick.
Okay.
She used to watch, not participate, but watch when I used to host Cold Call Club at the brokerage.
Cold Call Club was not for me.
Yeah, she's not a cold caller, but I was a cold call cowboy, and I got all my realtors that wanted to make cold calls together at 6 o'clock in the evening. And we would have a cooler of beer, pizza, and you weren't allowed to touch the beer, the soda, or the pizza until you've gotten an appointment. That was our rule. So some people would be dialing until 7:30. Some people would be dialing to 7:45. Some people would be dialing to 8 p.m. and they still wouldn't be able to break for a cocktail or a pizza, right? And the reason I brought it up is the garage sales, and you probably remember this, and if Todd's on tonight, he'll remember it. We would call garage sale homeowners that were hosting a garage sale on Saturday or Sunday, and this was a script. Hey, I saw your ad for your garage sale in the Sun Sentinel or online. Are you selling the house too, or just the stuff? And I swear about 1 every 10 would say, we're getting ready to sell our house. And it was just an interesting way to just drum up calls. But what were you going to say?
I thought you were talking about the fact that you had to say Taco Bell somewhere in the conversation.
We used to have silly games on the phones to make the guys and the girls making cold calls have fun when they were doing it. But enough said. The takeaway on this slide is make sure you know how to use landing pages. If you don't, get a YouTube video, learn about landing pages, learn about squeeze pages. I think there's a list of some of the other vendors that sell them here.
No, I took it out.
This is really what you did. What's on this screen right here. You took a 2 postcard a month goal.
Yep.
And created a system that we could all follow.
Not only did I create a system that we could all follow, or that you could all follow, I also gave you an expectation of what your income was going to be. It wasn't, oh, what am I going to make this year? You know, so everything that you were working towards, you knew why you were doing it. It wasn't just a haphazard type of, oh, I made this much money this year. We were pretty close. And what it also allowed us to celebrate the successes more, I believe. So when we broke the goal, when we went over on that source of business that is called geographic farming, we were able to pat ourselves on the back and feel good. One of my favorite examples of, you know, I think I went a little ahead on the goal thing, but one of my favorite examples is, you know, I had a lady that used to work for us, and she would make $350,000 a year and be like, oh my goodness, I don't know. I didn't make enough money this year. And I was like, well, how much did you want to make this year? And she was like, I don't know. It just wasn't enough. And that's never a way to run a business. You need to have projections. You need to know what's coming.
Joe Panamienko, the founder and the president of Annie Mac Home Mortgage, says, if it can't be measured, it can't be measured. It doesn't exist, right? If you don't have a measurable benchmark that you're going after in your farm area, like if you have an 80 home farm and you just arbitrarily think you're going to sell 10 homes that year in it, you're way off. You need to use those rules from the beginning to kind of set an expectation. And like Carrie just said, if you had a goal to sell 4 homes this year in your geographic farm and you sold 5, then you have something to celebrate. If you sold 4, you had a goal to sell 4 and you only sold 3, then maybe you can kind of like work a little harder for the last 2 quarters of the year or something like that. But too many realtors are playing golf without par. They don't even know what they're supposed to shoot on the hole.
Ooh,
so they're only sold 3 houses in their farm and they're so down on it. Well, they didn't know, were they supposed to sell 3 or were they supposed to sell 5? So playing golf without par is not a fun sport because you're just swinging blindly at everything. But these systems really did pay huge dividends for all of us and whatnot. Now, getting into calling, I think that anybody online today who has an aversion to telemarketing could use this system. This is not a telemarketing system. This is an inventory update system.
I think while I built the systems for you, you built this for me, because I'm not a cold caller. I'm not the person that wants to, hey, can I sell your house? That's not me. So,
and we were managing 550 realtors. So only about 50 of them were really good on the phone salespeople. The other 500 weren't. So we had to create systems like this. Hey, I'm sorry to bother you today after dinner, but I really wanted to catch you when you got home from work. My name is Russ Fitzpatrick. I'm with XYZ Real Estate Agent. The reason I'm calling you is I specialize in Wyndham Lakes real estate. And I've been very, very conscious of the fact that inventory is low right now. There's very few homes for sale in Grand Isle or in Wyndham Lakes this time of year. And with the summer months approaching and with the election year in the near future, we're finding that there's a lot of families that are trying to get into Wyndham Lakes here while their kids are out of school, and they want to close on these houses before the interest rates change, while the interest rates are still very, very low, and they want to get into these houses here in June, July, August, and September of 2020. Can I just ask you a question? Do you have any opportunities to maybe relocate or move in the next 6 to 12 months? Is this something that would be on your mind? It's not a cold call. It's a survey question to get to know them. And then when they say no, you don't walk away so disgruntled like that realtor just got beat on the by owner. You don't go, oh, darn it, they don't want to sell. Instead, you say, well, great. Listen, since you're happy staying in Grand Isle and I'm happy staying in Grand Isle, we're going to be friends for a long time. Just know that I sell Wyndham Lakes every single day, and I'd like the opportunity to work with you one day if you ever do decide to sell your
And if
Wyndham
you know
Lakes
any of
home.
your friends and family who are thinking about it.
It's not even a cold call. It's love. That's what it is. And in your social media campaign, the same types of attitudes are coming across to your farm area as you're going. We're starting to wrap up here. I want to get to some really good stuff. We got a couple hot items for geographic farming left.
So something that's really fun about this spend a dime, make a dollar part is be creative. So again, you know, we're all in quarantine, so we're all in close quarters. So when we were preparing for this, my son said, I used to deliver door hangers with you.
All my kids delivered door hangers.
Every one of them. They all did it. But as they got older, we would dress them up in a shirt and a hat.
Tell them to go be a courier. Drop this off as a courier over there at Mr. Smith's house. If we were going to an expired listing, we'd send a courier over with a package ahead of time. But what this slide's really about to me is those newsletters.
Okay. The newsletters were an amazing labor of love. They are not.
If you go back 5 slides, it said newsletters are expensive. They were in the expensive category.
Right.
But what we did is we sold advertisements in our neighborhood newsletter. So once we had established a 4-page, full-colored, glossy newsletter, well, we had an 8-page for one of our bigger subdivisions, but you could do a 4-page, kind of like a church bulletin, just a little 4-page glossy, and it might cost you, $1,000 to do a 4-page glossy for a 1,000-home farm. But then you sell ads in it for $250 a piece, and you've got 4 ads, and the whole thing's paid for. So when she says get creative, we had newsletters out for subdivisions all over our communities.
We actually hand delivered them in plastic bags as a door hanger on the front door, right? And I will tell you that they were very well received. And whenever I would go to my friend's house, they would always be in there. Yep. And not because it was ours. I even went to school one day because I had a recipe of the month. I went to the school to pick up the children, and the lady said, hey, that recipe that was in the thing, could you tell me how you did this or that? So it became something that was well known. And it also became something that they looked for the information. And I think that your newsletter not only has to be that, but also all that information that goes into that 4-page, 8-page newsletter also becomes content for you in your social media posts inside of that neighborhood. You can
congratulate a sports team for winning a championship. You can congratulate a college kid for graduating from a college. You can offer a pet sitter that works in the neighborhood, and you don't endorse them.
Pause on the pet sitter real quick. We actually had a pet sitter who was walking dogs who wanted an ad in our newsletter. And in exchange for the ad in our newsletter, guess what she did? She walked dogs and delivered our newsletters. She delivered our
newsletters for us for the right to be featured in our newsletters. These are 4-page glossy newsletters that create a staple in the community that they see every month. Your homeowner association presidents, your condo association presidents would love it if you as a realtor would take over their newsletter and feature yourself as a realtor, but put the homeowners association president, maybe a letter from the treasurer, maybe a letter from the secretary, anything that's relevant to the association. Make sure that content is in your newsletter. If you do decide,
gives you credibility. It gives your newsletter credibility if the president, the treasurer, you're gaining that information from that homeowners association, because now it's not just stuff that they can get, when they're searching in Google, right? So all of these things that are very, very specific to that community is super important.
And there's some punk kid online right now listening that's saying, oh, this is so old school. This is not, oh, she mentioned recipes in her newsletter. You know what? Go down the street here, Liz Caldwell, go down the street to Rio Vista, go down the street to River House. All of them have newsletters, and the realtors are featured in those newsletters. Okay. Newsletters are being read by those homeowners because they're Rio Vista specific newsletters. They're not reading
Yeah,
the
don't go
Gazette.
don't go out and buy one that's already pre-written. It's just,
Make-
it has to be very, very pinpointed to your geographic farm.
And if you did 6 newsletters a year rather than 12 to lower your threshold of pain, make those 6 newsletters great and make them a bi-monthly newsletter so that you can pepper your other contact. But I would recommend once a month newsletters is what
Oh, yes,
I would recommend.
absolutely.
But it is a lot of work. The last thing Carrie wanted to talk about real quick is just this goal setting concept.
It's really important to us, to me, that seriously, what would you do if you had $10,000 per month extra next year?
Just take your income from this calendar year and add $10,000 a month to it. And how would it change your life? I could personally vouch for the fact that a geographic farm area could add $100,000 a year to your income, right? And that really leads me to kind of the close of the quarantine realtor for the month of April. And I want to just hit on this.
I'm going to check and see if we have any questions.
We're calling it the Fitzpatrick Formula because of COVID-19 and the quarantine realtor and what's been born out of this. And the Fitzpatrick Formula really boils down to this, guys. And I could say this to my brother, my best friend, my sister, if she was getting into real estate. I said it to my wife 20 years ago. Absentee owners, database mining, subdivision farming, and seasoned leads are 4 channels that can consistently produce 16 deals a year for you. I'm talking closed, funded, check in the pocket, in the bank account deals. Okay. So rather than saying that most realtors, and I've watched this for 35 years, have what's called an entrepreneurial seizure. They go to see Mike Ferry, they go to see Brian Buffini, they go to see Vanderchuck, they go to see somebody, and they have this entrepreneurial seizure. They go, I'm going to put all my eggs in that Brian Buffini basket. I'm going to put all my eggs in this farming basket. I heard Carrie, she was talking about farming. I'm going to put all my eggs in the farming basket. Well, an entrepreneurial seizure is called an entrepreneurial seizure because they don't last. It's like the gym sells more memberships the first week of January than they do all year long, right? You have to stop being that piece of, wheat blowing in the field where you're going in multiple directions. Have some conviction about 4 sources of business that do 4 deals a year each. And all of a sudden you've got 16 deals a year coming into your family's financial well-being. Now, if you're in a community where an average deal is $6,000, $200,000 transactions or thereabouts, you're doing 16 at 200,000. I mean, at 6,000, you're probably talking about 100,000 even, right? Right about that range of gross income. That's a 6-figure realtor in a $200,000 neighborhood. Well, there ain't that many $200,000 neighborhoods left in the United States. So you're probably at 3.25, 350 or 400. Now, if you're in the 350 to 400 range, you're making physician money, you're making attorney money, you're making surgeon money, selling 16 houses a year. And that's a very, very worthy ideal. If success truly is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, take a look at these 4 sources of business and start to treat yourself like your own employee. Whack yourself on the head and say, I got to do these absentee owners this week. I've got to do my database mining this week. I've got to do my farming this week. And I've got to do my season leads for the week. And if you do that, I bet you we'll be high-fiving at the holiday party.
It's funny. We're on the last official week in April of the quarantine realtor, and I just noticed something that we were remiss upon.
What's that?
The best skill that anybody could put into their real estate career is what?
Business planning.
Time blocking.
Oh, business plan with a time block. Yes. So the Fitzpatrick Formula has to involve a well laid out plan, which you've got right in front of you, and the time
To do it.
execute that. And you only need about an hour for absentee owners once a week. Probably if you put in 90 minutes or less in your database once a week, you'd be fine. Your subdivision farm, even if you were doing a newsletter, it doesn't take more than 4 to 6 hours a month, maybe 2 hours a week,
It might be, yeah, that
couple
might,
hours a week.
but I mean, yes, when you're building it, so just because this is farming, when you're building it, it's going to take you a little bit more time, but do that labor, lay that foundation, and it will return tremendous results. But you have to set aside special time for each thing that you want to do.
Now, if you send out 100 texts to your seasoned leads every other day or every twice a week, you would be inundated with positive responses from your old, tired, dead leads. But if you don't want to do your old, tired, and dead leads, send them to me. I'll do them for you, and we'll charge you a 15% referral fee. So that was the Fitzpatrick Formula. We're going to be meeting every Wednesday for the foreseeable future with more Quarantine Realtor. We thought we might be out of this quarantine by now. Next week, we've got Vincent Gui coming on.
To talk to you about all of the different mortgage things that are going on, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, we speak real estate, and
he speaks mortgages, and there's so much going on with forbearance conversations, interest rate conversations. We're hoping to have another special guest on. I don't want to mention it quite yet. We haven't gotten a confirmation on next week with him, but hopefully we'll be Vincent Gui, Carrie, and myself, and one more guest. But either way, we appreciate you taking a half hour with us or a little bit more every Wednesday at 5 for the Quarantine Realtor. If you're out in Denver, we thank you for coming on early afternoons. If you're out in California, we appreciate you coming on mid afternoons. But either way, we love you guys. We really, truly respect the profession of residential real estate as a great place with no glass ceiling, no gender restrictions. There's no racial or gender limitations to the income that you can make. I know that, you know, some of you have an accent and you feel apprehensive. Go after that niche. You have so much opportunity to earn in residential real estate without any glass ceiling over you. It doesn't matter what your education is, your level of academics, as long as you work in this business, you will thrive. So enough said. That's the Quarantine Realtor for April 2020. We thank you guys for being on.
hey,
Click it off.
We haven't killed each other yet.
We've been in quarantine for a month and a half and we haven't killed each other yet. We'll see how it goes for one more week.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.